Well, he liked to experiment with new things, new colors, new chemicals to make colors, new ways of doing lithography, and everything was a pleasant challenge, art-wise. And I never could see how he did watercolors. I never could see how anybody could do them, because they used to wet the sheet of paper out, you know, make it soaking wet, and then put the colors on it. And he would do it also casually. His motions were absolutely unconscious of any study. It was like poetry.
See, I think the mark of any good artist, what I'm interested in when I look at an artist's work is, you know, I don't want it to be the most photographic thing or the most colorful thing. I want to know what that artist felt about that subject. And so if an artist loves a subject, if an artist paints or draws what he or she is attracted to, that's what I want to see, whether they communicate that enthusiasm, they communicate that feeling. And so John would gravitate towards subjects that attracted him. It was that simple. It's interesting to look at John's early images that he did down in Xena with Bolton Brown, because there's so much of a resemblance to Bolton Brown's work. You can tell that John, as a young artist, was really enamored of Bolton Brown. One of the trademarks of Bolton Brown's work and John's early work is this border around the image. And another is the kind of calligraphic stroke that you see in these trees. The deeper I got in my knowledge of John, the more I discovered about what a terrific lithographer he had been. At first I thought, well, this was just something he dabbled in. But then I started to see his prints and hear about his experiences with Bolton Brown, and I realized he was a pretty major lithographer around the mid-century. John was kind of an ageless guy. He had a great sense of humor. He was always, I mean, we both loved music, so we would get together sometimes and he would play music. He loved anything that had a sort of just free, wild quality to it, and you can see it in the strokes of his watercolor. And the thing I love about them is the kind of freedom that they show, even more than the prints. The watercolors, I just have a feeling, is where John really let loose. He was more interested in expressing himself, and to me that's the essence of any artist, what they show, what comes through in their style, as far as just looking at a scene and with a few strokes being able to capture the feeling of it, to capture the light of this day in particular. I think there's a bit of realism there that to me is one of the most intriguing things about John's work. Instead of idealism, it's more grounded in realism.
There was that ever-present twinkle in his wise old elfin eye that always made me stop and grin and hang around to try and figure out the secret that he always seemed to know. Maybe it was hiding in those paintings at his shows. Birches dance in crimson light, their city chimneys bathed in white. There's the impish blush in Junior's cheek as he postpones his kiss goodnight. Playful turns in nimble strokes from skillful hands who loved good jokes, and shuffling tunes on banjo strings and tartan plaids, all those things. And there was that ever-present twinkle in his wise old elfin eye that always made me stop and grin and hang around to try and figure out the secret that he always seemed to know. I'm sure that it's still hiding in those paintings from his shows.
The color lithographs are just gorgeous, both technically and visually. The images are beautiful, and they're very, very well executed. Some of the lithographs were outstanding, and you could see the heritage of American printmaking right through, both in the images and in the litho technique. And then some of the watercolors were very loose and elegant, done in a very flowing style. He made it look very easy. When you looked at the work, you could almost think, well, gee, that's beautiful. I bet I could do that. But of course you can't because you weren't John Menihan.
His studio still cluttered with supplies of every shade. Not only paints and easels, as in most artists' trade, but several items you'd imagine we would throw away, like broken bits of plastic or those foam scraps on display, which validate the scientist inside this artist's soul. For he molded them to map the inner ear's 3 parts in whole. Today it hangs for students at the College for the Deaf, like so many of his murals that grace our civic steps. And unlike so many artists who left home so they could shine, John knew how to share his heart, yet never undermine that precious space you set aside for wife and kids alone, and still enjoy the gifts you give to those outside your home. And there was that ever-present twinkle in his wise old elfin eye that always made me stop and grin and hang around to try and figure out the secret that he always seemed to know. I'm sure that it's still hiding in those paintings from his shows. And though he never did let on that secret that he knew, he's left behind these gifts of art so we could find some clues. And maybe when I see a rainbow beaming in the sky, I'll see John there with his paintbrush and that twinkle in his eye.